on board. For some of you, what I'm going to talk about initially is going to be repetitive. You have seen communications come from our offices over the last few weeks, but we think it's really an important conversation. So I'm going to start our conversation today by talking about guidance, funding, information that has come from the federal government to you. What I want to ask you to do later on, there will be a chance if folks want to speak, you'll be able to take yourself off of mute. But in the meantime, I'd like folks to go ahead and be typing into the chat as you hear things, as you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you have a recommendation, put it into the chat. If there's something you don't understand, please put it into the chat. What we're going to be doing, if we don't have time to answer all your questions today, we will look at all of those comments and questions, and we'll be sure to put something together that responds to them afterwards. So please, that is the best way for us to know what you're thinking. If the information you're hearing is clear, if you have questions, we'll want to know about that. So with that, we'll get started. A while ago, back in July, folks should have received guidance from the Office of Early Childhood Development from Katie Ham, our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Office of Early Childhood Development at ACF. And you also got guidance from the Office of Head Start and the Office of Child Care. So there was this Dear Colleague letter that came out that I've referred to in prior communications to you. And what this was about was encouraging states and providers, local providers, grantees of various kinds, to take bold action to address basically the early childhood workforce shortages that were all exacerbated by the pandemic. And in that guidance document, we strongly encouraged states and tribal leaders and local leaders to look at ways to utilize federal resources to increase staff compensation, whether that be through direct compensation and benefits, bonuses, stipends, studies, whatever you could do to really get a better handle on recruitment, retention, and compensation for staff. How are we going to strengthen our early childhood professional development workforce through career pathways, through recruiting strong workforce members? And in that communication, although it was largely directed, and there was a webinar related to it, it was largely directed with to Head Start and to child care, because so much of the funding had to do with recovery funds and stabilization funds. But in that guidance, there was a reference to the fact that you could use your PDG funds for this purpose. And that we were interested in having states, if you were not already doing so, consider the idea of, and you have funds that were not committed or that weren't being spent, to consider the possibility of a change in scope to your PDG grants that the federal project officers would review, discuss with you, and ultimately, even if it meant a little back and forth, finally approving, so that you could actually use some of these resources for the purposes of strengthening the supports you have for your workforce. Didn't mean that anything else you weren't working on wasn't important, but we were trying to say this is something that this was a little bit more flexibility we could give you than maybe had been communicated in the past. At that time, I made a promise that I did not keep, and that was to send you guidance and a template by July 20th. I did not do that. My apologies. The reason I did not do that is because I did not know at the time that I was going to be required to move this through a clearance process so that I could submit a formal IM, a formal information memorandum. And so it had to go through, as I'm sure you do in your states, it had to go through a much more formal process of review. It is in its last stages of review right now. So I don't have it to share with you as a final document yet, but I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to share it on the screen with you. And I'm going to, after this meeting, I'm going to send you the key elements that we know already are available for you to look at that aren't under consideration or that need final approval. In any case, you will receive this IM, which will give you additional information on how to change the scope of work. Now, in the previous email you received from me, we strongly urged all of the grantees, particularly who were in their third year of funding, which is coming to an end in December, or even the 3 grantees that's funding was coming to an end in April, that you try to submit any intended scope of work change by September 30th. The reason we picked that date, reason why the window is so short, is because we want to be able to approve any change of scope, because you should begin implementing that change prior to us approving a no-cost extension that we know many of you will be requesting. For the 3 states that end, whose third year ends in April, and for those states that are only in their second year of PDG funding, you can certainly submit now as well, but you have more time. So the states that are going to end with whose third year funding ends in April will have until the beginning of the year to submit a scope of change, a scope change if you wish to. And those that are only in their second year of funding will have until much later in the year to do so. Although this is a good time to do it if you are prepared to have those discussions and do so. So you're not prevented from submitting now. It's just that we want to give it's more urgent to approve those of you whose funding is going to end, whose third year funding is going to end by December 30th. Your FPOs are going to be contacting you, if they have not already done so, individually, and talking to you about that, talking you through. Do you understand what's available? What are you thinking about? Is a change of scope something you're considering? And if it is, they can help guide you or direct you or respond to your questions. And if they can't answer your questions, they'll bring them to Tammy and I, and the 2 of us will kind of give guidance on how to go further. So what I want to do first is I want to toss up this IM that I've been talking about for the last couple of minutes. It is a draft. Hold on a minute. I'm terrible at sharing. So let me share the screen. Let me find the IM. Here we go. And I think you can see this now. Is that correct?
I can see it.
Okay, great. So what I want to be able to do is let you know that this is a draft IM. This is what it's going to talk about. And you'll see here that it's pretty much talking about increasing compensation, looking at ways that you grant activities that address the major areas contributing to workforce shortage, such as recruitment, retention, and staff compensation. We've identified the states by initials, in terms of which states we know, but you know who you are in terms of the grants that end by December 30th. We then also talk about the steps that you would follow to change your scope of work. And so we tell you what to do. We give you a template that you do not have to use. But that'll guide you on the kinds of questions that are being reviewed. The FPOs are going to review your requests within 5 business days. If they have any questions, they'll get back to you. There'll be a little back and forth for clarity purposes. And then they will move it to Sherry Harmon, who's the grant specialist, so that we can make sure that we can begin to process any change of scope that would be necessary. We also in this document have provided you with some workforce examples. This is not an attempt to cover all states, but what we've done is we've pulled out information that you have provided or in reports, or that we know through your meetings with your FPOs, where we've highlighted particular states and activities that those states have taken as it relates to a number of topic areas. So the first few will have to do with career pathways and professional development. You'll see examples of retaining a highly qualified workforce, so recognizing career advancement, supporting mental health and well-being. You'll see that there's conducting wage studies and developing salary scales. And these are just intended to be examples that you can look at, build off of. If maybe you're doing something similar, maybe you're doing something totally different, If you're doing something wonderful and it's not here, please share it with us and we'll make sure it gets out. This is a living document for us that we're going to keep expanding on so that we can share with other states the wonderful ways that you all are taking steps to help support your workforce and to do what needs to be happening. So you're going to get, I'm going to send you those examples after this meeting. The IM should be approved, we hope no later than Wednesday of next week. And if it's approved sooner, we will send it out. But the guidance steps will also be, the process for how you go about submitting a change of scope will also be shared with you. So what I'm going to do is I now want to share the template that we are going to provide for you. If I can find it. Here it is. So this template is an optional template. We are giving you some ideas of how you could proceed and the kinds of questions that you want to answer. So what you'll see in this template is that there are a number of items where we basically will say, based on the activities described in your most recent non-compete continuation application, please provide a brief overview of proposed changes in your state scope and why the request is being made. Are any previously approved activities being canceled? So is there something that you're not going to be doing that you said you would do and now you're not doing it? Maybe you weren't doing it because something changed, or maybe you see this as a higher priority and something else can be covered maybe by expenses somewhere else. So we want to know if you're canceling anything that was already approved, with a highlight here that bonus activities cannot be canceled. Then, are any activities being enhanced or modified? If so, which ones and how? Identify and list all newly proposed activities within your scope of work for which you're seeking approval. So we want you to be very clear. We want you to be clear about the amount budgeted. We want you to be clear about what exactly is changing. If a change of scope budget revision amendment is required, remember that's anytime a budget category goes over 250,000, you contact your FPO, you submit the request as soon as possible. We'll do a budget amendment, and then we continue with your change of scope. So if you have already submitted a no-cost extension request and it's been approved, I think there are two examples. The state, and you want to change your scope, you can get in touch with your FPO about the process we will follow to do that. So normally, cannot change scope once you've gotten a no-cost extension. But in this case, we are making an exception since we're not yet at the end of the year. We'll make a modification. We'll give you the change of scope, and then we'll change your no-cost extension based on those new numbers. Okay, so this is what the template's going to look like. Now, then we ask you for a narrative. Provide a revised line item budget and budget narrative for the activities that align with the proposed changes in your scope. This is an optional template. We need answers to all those questions, but if you don't, for whatever reason, want to use that template, you don't need to. You can actually decide that that you would wait and do something, use a different process, but you want to capture those questions. So I'm going to stop sharing a minute. I'm going to check. I haven't had a chance to check what's in the chat, if there's anything in the chat. So I'll just go in here and look.
There is a question from Meg Hassan, and I may have mispronounced that. If our PDG scope already includes workforce activities, and we are considering requesting a scope expansion rather than something entirely new, should we follow the same process?
You should, because what we want to make sure is, well, let me answer a different question. Well, let me answer this a different way. If your scope already includes all of the workforce activities and how those funds are going to be spent, then you don't need to have a scope change because it's already approved. You're only requesting a change in scope if you're actually changing what you're doing. So if you had workforce activities already approved, but now you're expanding on those activities, you want to get that approved. If you're going in a new direction with those activities, you want to get that approved. But if you're already doing and you already have approval for what's in your scope, then you don't need to submit a scope of work change. If it means that you're going to spend more money or less money, you'd only go through a budget modification if that was necessary. So you don't need to do a whole new process if what you have already, if your understanding with your FPO is already approved by them, you don't need a new process. If you have any questions about that, talk to your FPO and they can clarify that for you, since every situation is a little bit different. Okay, that was the only question I saw in the chat so far. So we're going to send you that information shortly. But in the meantime, hopefully you can be thinking about that. Your FPOs will talk to you. It is perfectly okay if you're not doing a change of scope, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what this means. So originally we said to you that because this is a systems grant, that as you're looking at, if you're considering compensation issues, that you should consider it as compensation studies. You could consider bonuses, you could consider stipends, you could cover fees for employees who are taking courses, things of that nature. What we did was we got an additional opinion from our general counsel that basically says that if you decided that you wanted to use some money for direct compensation, you could my mouth's not working today. You could do so through subgranting or other ways, as long as you tie the purpose. As long as you tie what you're doing to the purposes in the legislative language or in the NOFO. So, for example, the purposes in the legislative language have to do with doing a needs assessment and a strategic plan. If your needs assessment identified that compensation is an issue or recruitment retention is an issue, and you've now put that in your strategic plan, that becomes a valid reason for why you can use funds for that purpose. Maybe you have looked at a plan for more efficiently using your resources and how you're going to improve the overall quality of the programs that you're providing, and you believe you can do that through compensation like activities, then that becomes a rationale. So looking again, I will send out the legislative language, even though I think all of you have it, so that you can be reminded of what those purposes are, and that becomes part of your rationale, or that could become part of your rationale for why you may want to make a change related to compensation related activities. Again, have those conversations with your FPOs, and you will probably be in a very good place. For those of you who have questions after this, again, please put them in the chat. But also, I will be meeting with the FPOs next Tuesday. I will be talking to them about any inquiries or conversations they've been having. And we will strategize together so that after we meet next Tuesday, we may be sending out additional guidance if there were sufficient questions or confusion or uncertainty about what needs to be done. So I'm going to stop there a moment. Just check again. I don't see anything else in the chat. So I am going to shift direction. You all know that there are notices of funding opportunity pending. Those notices, well, actually, I'll come back to that. Let's stay with something else. If you do a change in scope, let's talk a little bit about your no-cost extension. So your no-cost extension, which is going to happen sometime between now and the end of the calendar year, if you need to request one, will happen after your change of scope. So it'll be important for you to notify your FPO. If you're not requesting a change of scope, they're going to be asking you that as well. So everybody wants to hear from you one way or the other. I am requesting, I'm not requesting, because then that means we don't have to worry about making sure that we process something before we process your no cost extension. But there is some confusion happening with no cost extensions. No cost extensions can only be processed covering the period of time after December 30th of 2022. So if you do a no cost extension now, you're not doing an 18-month no cost extension. You're not doing a 15-month no cost extension. You're not even doing a 13-month no cost extension. You can only do up to 12-month no cost extension. And the no cost extension would cover those funds that did not get obligated after December 30th or by December 30th. So you're making your best guess, which is why we strongly recommended that states not do a no cost extension until later in the year, when you have a better handle on how much do I think I'm going to really be able to obligate here by the end of this year, and how much will I need to request to roll into the next year. If the funds are obligated in FY20, well, in calendar year 22, then those funds don't get carried over. They're obligated. That becomes part of your liquidation process, your payment out of the work that has been done, obligated in 22 and been done in 22. So if you submit a request that's more than 12 months starting December 31st or January 1st, that would get sent back to you, because we can only process a no cost extension for the new year. You're doing the best you can. You're guessing the best you can. So if you overestimate, that's fine. You don't want to underestimate, because we can't change the no scope, the no cost extension. So again, this is information you've heard before, but we think it's so important. We really don't want any of you to misunderstand or make a mistake or miss some communication. So that's why we're repeating all this now as we get closer to the last quarter of the year. Okay, so now the other thing I want to say about that is, as I look at your financial reports based on your second quarterly financial report, myself and some of the FPOs are somewhat anxious, as maybe you are also, about the amount of money some of you have left that is unobligated. I am sure that you are trying to do everything you can to obligate those funds, but some of it's not moving, and some of it is a little bit alarming in terms of the amounts. We think the reasons are still having trouble with contracting, not being able to hire staff being pulled to other things that have to get happening, and you're maybe working on your ARPA recovery funds and things like that. There's a lot of duplication of effort here because there's so much money available to you and you're trying to manage it all, and things have to be prioritized. What I want to offer to you is, if there's anything we can do to assist you in terms of getting this money obligated, if you need a message from us, if you need clarification on some policy, please let us know. And then we can attempt to help you in that way. But obviously, we want to be available to you, as we have been, and try to assist you in any way we can to help you resolve that issue. We are hoping that no one will be, that everyone will be able to obligate at least the amount of funds that have covered your first 2 years. We are hoping that no one is requesting a no-cost extension greater than an annual amount. We're not saying you can't submit an greater than annual amount, but we're going to have to look at that with you more closely and understand why. And so you should be having those conversations with us sooner rather than later, so we can help strategize with you if there is a way to assist you. So let me see. I think there are a couple of messages in the chat. So let me see what we have. From past experience, we've been challenged by subgrants contractors returning currently obligated funds. Any guidance on how to budget for that possibility in the no-cost extension request? That is a great question. Since Sherry could not be on this call today, I'm going to table that and we'll talk with her and we'll definitely answer that question. I think that, but that would be something obviously out of your control. I'm hoping we can find a way that you can reprogram those dollars, but we will take that up and get back to you, Meredith, and the others who I'm sure have a similar question. There's another question. If we overestimate more than our annual award, is that okay? It is okay. We'd rather you didn't, but obviously you could only do as best you can, right? I mean, so we want you to overestimate rather than underestimate. But if you can wait closer to the end of the year, your estimate may be closer to the real figures. And so there's no penalty for overestimating. Because as we get to the end of the year, you'll say, oh, I said we're going to need $11 million to carry over, but we actually were able to obligate 5 of those. So we only need 6 million, and that's great news. So not a problem at all. Okay, those are the questions in the chat. So now I'm going to shift the topic. Oh, wait a minute. Another question. Meg says, to clarify, if we submit the NCE request in September, we can say the request begins end of December 23. Is that correct? Right. It would begin no sooner than December 31st, because that's the start of the period after this grant period ends. So it would really be December 31st to December 30th of 2023, or January 1st, 2023 to December 2023. So that's where the NCE should cover only. What your expectation is, what you will not be able to obligate by December 30th. Okay, now we can shift to the discussion about the NOFOs. All of you, except for the states that are in their second year of funding, will have an opportunity to compete this fall. You've seen the forecasts, or you should have seen the forecasts by now in grants.gov. So you know that if you are initial grant state that has not had PDG renewal grant funds, you'll have an opportunity to go after renewal grant funding. You know that if you're a state that has never gotten PDG funds, you'll have a chance to go for initial grant funding. And surprise, surprise, if you are a grantee ending their third year of funding, either December 30th or April 28th, I think it is, you will be eligible to apply for, in effect, was another initial grant, but we're probably going to change the name and not call it initial anymore. It may just be called the planning grant. And the idea there is that those of you who are ending your third year of funding will have an opportunity for a smaller amount of funding to continue some of your efforts, to do additional planning, maybe another needs assessment or a modified needs assessment. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to adjust to the impact of the pandemic. What has the pandemic done to your planning, to you changing your priorities? Are there new areas that you need to focus on in doing an assessment or strategic planning? You will see in the language in the NOFO when it is released, it will basically tell you what you need to do. I cannot go into the details. What I can tell you is for either NOFO, if you were to submit what you submitted last time, it would not be sufficient to get you funded. So obviously there's going to need to be more thinking and planning, but it follows the same basic core because it has to be driven by the legislative language. So that's all I can say for now. The other thing I can say, so that's all I can say about the content. The other thing I can say though for you is that we have to award these funds by December 31st. I can tell you now, even though I can't tell you when these will post, I can tell you now that they are probably not going to post when we wanted them to. So, well, we wanted them to post in August. They are not going to post in August. So we want to give you 60 days, and we plan to give you 60 days. And we have holidays coming up. So you can do your own inferences there. But this ties to the next topic area. You saw in my email, I think, or in the registration notification, that we are postponing the annual convening. The reason we are postponing the annual convening is because you will absolutely still be writing your applications, for those of you who choose to apply, the week that the annual convening would be occurring. And so we cannot do that to you. We don't want to do that to you. We also want you to attend the convening. And so we are going to be delaying the annual convening in person to sometime in 2023. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. So what that tells you is that you're going to be writing in November. You can project backwards. And we certainly have to have it before Thanksgiving. So you have some kind of window there of telling you when this is going to happen. Okay, I think that's all I can say without getting myself in trouble. I think I can tell you that much, but probably not much more. Okay, let me see. There are a couple of questions that came in the chat. Some of these may be about a different topic. So let me go back and take a look. Okay, so Danielle, our internal contracts are limiting our ability to prepare contracts that extend beyond December 30th, which is impacting how we reobligate funds without a NOAA showing an extended project term. Can ACF prepare some memo encouraging us to move forward with contracts agreements, recognizing we will get an NCE of some sort? Okay, I thought that the memo, that the communication I've already sent did that. When we said that you could submit a no-cost extension earlier if you needed to. So I thought that that actually in itself would send the message. But I can take a look at this and see. The other thing is, and maybe your state won't allow this, but we ask you to add language in the contract that says that the contracts can be extended beyond the period and obviously will be honored as long as funds are available. But we can take a look at the language we have now, and we can look at your suggestion and see how we might strengthen that to make it a more meaningful memorandum. And to Neil, you can also communicate directly with us, and as can any other state. I see Meg has said you would find that helpful also. Okay, Karen Powell, for those of us in your third year, there is at this point one more year of funding. If you apply for this initial or planning grant, it is a one-year grant. If you are awarded that funding, you would get a one-year grant. All indications right now are that Congress seems to be interested in continuing to fund for a period of time. So we don't have an answer yet, whether you then the following year would be eligible to apply for a renewal grant. Again, we don't know any of that yet. So this is a one-year grant. For those of you who are presently in your second year only, there will be a competition for you at the end of next year where you can follow the same path that's being followed now. Okay. Joy says, I agree with Megan Tennille. Our procurement is having heartburn about extending contract end dates. Okay, we'll put something together and see, and hopefully it will be helpful. I hope all is well. I am writing to request clarification regarding the PDG notice of funding opportunity. Okay, hold a minute. I'm missing this. States are not to create another program, but rather help coordinate early childhood. No, this does not. So I'm sorry. For those of you not reading it, I'm reading to myself. That doesn't help you. States are not to, so the language says states are not to create another early childhood program, but rather help coordinate early childhood programs and services that already exist in the state. This is the same language that has been in all of our previous NOFOs as well. It's in the legislation. So it's driven by the legislative language. This does not mean, this means you're not creating another program. You're not creating another pre-K program. You're not creating another childcare program. You're not creating another CCAP, any other kind of program. What it does mean is what you said here. It does mean that you can create new projects meant to increase coordination and improvement. That's what it's for. So you're basically building on existing work. You're building on, maybe there's new work that didn't get covered in your previous competition, in your previous scope of work. Maybe the pandemic or a new needs assessment will cover new ideas. Maybe you started something this time and now you want to expand on it. So you'll see when the NOFO comes out, it'll be very clear what you are to do. Any idea what's on the horizon for those of us in the second year? Okay, I just said. Judy's basically telling Nicole that she would be happy to follow up. For states that have not yet been funded, will the NOFO be for a 3-year fund? So the states that have not received a renewal grant fund before, the renewal grant is 3 years. As always, based on annual appropriation. So the renewal grants, if you haven't received a renewal grant before and you're applying for a renewal grant, if you are awarded, you will be awarded with the hopes of 3 years of funding as long as Congress appropriates those funds each year. Okay, that takes care of the chat. So let's go back to the convening. We are going to, since you have to finish your applications before Thanksgiving, we are going to go ahead and hold some sort of gathering virtually in December. And there are some representatives from states as well as from the federal government working with SRI who are trying to come up with some recommendations. This may be a one-day event. It may be 2 half days. It'll probably be around the topic. We may be talking about something like sustainability and workforce, for example, and talk about those two. We may talk about what's going on in terms of what's happening in your state. But part of the purpose of the convening is because we want you to be able to share with each other what you're doing and listen to each other and problem solve with each other. So there'll be more details about what's going to happen in December. It'll be shorter than an in-person meeting. We'll send you more details, but we now have a new issue. In order not to pay a cancellation fee with the hotel, we've agreed to keep the same hotel and to pick dates in 2023. The hotel has already told us, we have a lot of our dates that are filled already, so you won't get first dibs. So what I'd like you to do in the chat, and this is just your initial impressions, I'd like you to tell us, if we could make it happen, what would be the best months to have this in-person convening, and what months should we not consider having a convening? So what months do you think would be the best months for convenings? And what months would you say, please do not touch this month? Someone has put in mid-March as legislative, put in reasons if you want, anything you can. Give us as much information as you can about what works. We'll take that information. We'll try our best to honor it across everyone's requests. And we will come back to you with new dates. I've already received some preliminary information. By the way, the group, the planning committee group, strongly voted not to have a full virtual meeting, but to delay the meeting to in-person in 2023 and we can have a shorter meeting in December. So that's why we're not doing a full virtual meeting in December. I see a few responses coming in. Please continue. By the way, if you're putting in months, I need to know if those months are the ones we should or the months we shouldn't be meeting. If you only put in the month, I won't know which category that falls into. So please clarify. Do not schedule in or consider these months. You can continue to do that as we're talking. There will be more time. I will be meeting with the hotel with SRI later this week, maybe early next week. And we will try to lock in some dates that we can then send back to you. We'll do the best, as I said before, we'll do the best we can to honor everybody's requests. And hopefully we'll be able to do that. Okay, excuse me 1 minute while I turn off my my phone ringer. Okay, so while you're doing that, the other thing you can do in the chat, if you've put in what you think are best months or not so good months, if we're going to tackle, let's say we're going to tackle 2 topics, 2 areas or 2 activity areas, you can suggest in the chat which activity areas in our virtual meeting or what topics do you hope we will be discussing in our virtual meeting as we begin to plan out what would take place then. Okay, I'm going down. There's a question here. We have travel funds in our budget, which we anticipated. We will now plan to have that move into the NCE. Is that the right way to think about it? So yes, that you can absolutely do it that way. That's a good way to think about it. In some cases, yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to think about it. You could also just reprogram the dollars for now and try to obligate as much as possible, but that would be an acceptable transfer of those funds. Okay, so again, if you have suggested topics, feel free to continue adding them. I'm going to change the subject one more time. So related to those NOFOs, I want to come back to the NOFO for a minute. I received an email yesterday that was somewhat concerning for some of you. So the email reads as follows. We would like to bring an issue to your attention, meaning me, that is impacting NOFO applicants and current recipients government-wide as we approach the end of the fiscal year. That's the September fiscal year, not our December fiscal year. Applicants are having difficulty accessing grants.gov due to not having an active sam.gov registration. What is happening is that basically many of you don't have to renew your SAM registration in the next couple of months. But if you have to renew your SAM registration this month or next month or October or even November, this could affect you. If you've already done it, if you did it earlier in the year, you're covered for a year, you don't have a problem. But should you either in the process of renewing your SAM registration, or if you have a need to renew your SAM registration in those coming months, and you find yourselves having difficulty, you should immediately alert your federal project officer and me. So everybody needs to renew every year. Some renewals have already been completed and they may not affect you, but some renewals are coming due in the next couple of months and you could be affected. Right now, to address this urgent matter, which has affected thousands of applicants across multiple applications, across multiple agencies, OMB has also authorized an extension of upcoming SAM expirations. So we have OMB taking certain steps to extend the registration period. We have other policies that are, or possibilities that are being looked into, such as if this continues to be a problem, and we may be able to do something with electronic acceptance of applications. There are things being looked at. But for now, this is just an FYI. It will be sent to you in an email. sam.gov renewals have to take place. If you don't have your SAM registration, you can't get into grants.gov and you can't submit an application. So basically, this is something for you to find out. If you don't know, go back and find out, do we have our SAM registration? And if you do, no problem. If you don't, start as soon as you can, because it may take a while. I'm going to look quickly and see. The best way to check if your account will expire is to talk to your, I think your fiscal office would know that, your budget office, or your grants office, if you have a grants office, unless that's you. There was a question, are there any other events in 2023 that we need to plan travel expenses? I would not, at least not from our end yet. If that happens, we will allow you to make a modification in your budget, but we are not aware of anything else at this point. Okay, thank you. Those of you who are putting in ideas for what to do, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, so now shift topic again. This time, at the time when we sent the Dear Colleague letter, we let you know that the Department of Education, in collaboration with ACF and HHS, had put forth guidance on, so that those in the workforce, including those in Head Start, preschool, childcare, that they may be eligible for federal student loan forgiveness, even if they were not eligible previously. There is a form, there is a deadline of October 31st, 2022. If you have not seen, this will also be sent to you, but if you have not seen the loan forgiveness information, the link will be sent, the document will be sent, the application will be available. We'd ask you to get it out to as many people as possible in your state if this is something that has not already happened. This is an opportunity. We don't know if it will ever be offered again. And so we have between now and October, the end of October, to possibly help many of our employees in those local programs. Again, that's been in announcements to you previously. We're going to send it out one last time for one last push. Okay, 2 more items, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. Kim has just put a link in the chat where you can find that loan forgiveness. Thank you, Kim. You may or may not know this, but unfortunately, our contract with SRI ends at the end of December, and we do not have an option to renew that contract. So we have to do, at the same time that we're doing the NOFOs, we'll also be doing a TA contract competition. SRI, I'm sure, will apply. There may be others that apply. And so we won't know until the competition is held whether SRI would remain as the TA provider or if a new contractor would be selected to transfer over to as of December 27th of 2022. I tell you that because there is work that you are doing with them, with your TA specialists. If you should ask for new TA, unless it's very short term, they may not be able to say yes to you because they can't make a commitment past their end of December date. So if you have any concerns, if you have any questions about TA, Again, you can talk to your TA specialist, but you could also talk to your FPO. And we will do our best to make sure that resources continue to be available. We do not expect a lapse in TA support, but if that should happen, the resources that SRI has created and is available will transfer to us at the federal level, and we'll be able to share them with you as needed. So there will be a TA competition taking place probably around the same time that you guys are doing your applications for new funding, PDG funding. Just taking a quick look at my agenda here. Sorry you guys have to listen to me talk for so long, but I hope you're finding this information useful. Okay. Basically, there's only one more topic I have, and that is originally this meeting was set up so that we could talk about equity. We at the federal level, both the Department of Education and HHS and ACF have been working at equity issues at the federal level. What are we going to do to improve equity? What can we do? What can we do for ourselves that affect our work? What can we do that affect the grants that we create or the competitions, et cetera? And at some point in the near future, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Things take so long here. At some point in the future, we will be sharing with you some of our equity plans and how we think it supports the work that you do. At the same time, we're interested in knowing the progress you're making as you tackle the issue of equity, as well as the challenges you're facing, in the hopes that maybe we can help you address some of those challenges, and we can also share those successes. So originally, this meeting was going to be to ask you to talk to us about what you were doing in the area of equity. As you can see, we moved away from that agenda. So what I've asked our FPOs to do with you is, as they meet with you in the next month, that they're to ask you, and you'll get this in an email as well, but they're going to ask you a couple of questions. Going to ask you to talk about equity in recruitment, retention, and compensation, if you've done anything along those lines. Equity supporting your workforce in any other way. Equity as it relates to accessing services for children and families. Equity in addressing children with behavioral health issues or disabilities. Equity in data collection. Equity in family voice opportunities. So I'm highlighting those. Some of your efforts may cross across them all. Some of them may be specific to one or the other. We're looking, I'll send this to you in an email after these meetings, along with the other documents. But we're looking to get a better handle on where you're making progress, where you're just beginning, but you're tackling, and where you're struggling, what challenges are you facing, so that we might not only learn from each other, but we also might figure out if there's an area where we can provide support to you, maybe in communication like several of you asked for in this meeting, or maybe in a webinar or some other mechanism. Okay, so that's our agenda for today. What I'd like to do now is open it up. You can either type an item in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and you can speak. Do you have a question or another topic area that wasn't covered today that you would like to have an answer to? And we'll just wait a couple of minutes and see if anyone puts anything in the chat, or if anyone takes themselves off mute to ask a question. After 2 or 3 minutes, I'll give it about 2 minutes, and then I'll do a last call. Okay, there's a question. Will there be a more in-depth overview of how to complete a no-cost extension? We have no-cost extension documents and guidance that we can share with you. You may have received it before, but you may not have, Devin. So we'll just make sure that that's part of the documents that we include here. Then if you need more in-depth overview, you can either directly contact Sherry Harmon and your federal project officer, and they will actually hold a meeting with you and walk you through the process. Okay, thank you. Many thank yous. So I appreciate the thank yous. Okay, so I'm going to do something. I don't remember if I've done it with this group more than once, but I do something 3 times. I ask for more questions 3 times. So does anyone have any additional questions or comments?
Hi, Richard. This is Nicole. I just have one additional question. You may have covered it, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself.
That's
I just
okay.
want to know, when you mention equity, will there be a topic covered regarding equity, regarding funding across early childhood programs? That's an area I would like to see covered, just to ensure how we're making sure that funds are being distributed in an equitable manner.
That is an excellent suggestion. Why don't you type that into the chat as well?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any comments or questions? Any other comments or questions? Are there any other comments or questions? Okay,
Hi,
here's a
Richard.
question. Okay, go ahead. Who's speaking?
Hi, this is Emily from Nevada. I'm just wondering, and I realize this is the minority of this group, but I'm wondering if there's going to be another TA call or any more information for states that are not currently funded, but are hoping to apply. If there's another TA call we should plan on attending, or if we should just keep our eyes on our inboxes.
Yes, no, there is. Thank you. That's an excellent question. So for any state, well, regardless, if you're applying for funding, once the funding announcement is posted, I will be sending emails out to all the states, letting you know it's posted, although you probably will know that even before I get to you. And then you will see in the NOFO that there will be a scheduled webinar to talk about those competitions individually. So there'll be a webinar for all those applying for a renewal grant. There'll be a webinar for all those applying for an initial grant. And so hopefully those webinars will be both announced by email, and they'll be announced in the actual funding announcement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Rachel asked, is there going to be another call directed towards states? Oh, that's the question. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Possible topic to consider. Okay. How to ensure funding is distributed equitably. Good suggestion, Nicole. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? By the way, everybody, every time someone asks something, it starts over. Are there any other questions or comments? Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we thank you for finding time to join this. We hope you found it useful. Thank you for all your comments in the chat. Please continue. If you think of other things, talk to your FPOs, especially before next Tuesday when we meet, because we'll be talking about any feedback you share with them, any questions, any recommendations, etc. It's hard to know when the next webinar will be, so we will talk to you soon. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and stay healthy, have fun, and go get your work done, guys. Take care.